let's go. So what we're going to talk about today is function analysis. So not value engineering completely, but part of value engineering is the function analysis step. And this is what we're going to focus on tonight. So I'm going to explain a few things. First, I want you to see things like that, where probably a lot of you guys have seen this joke a few years ago. But I think that, between what the customer describes, what we design, what we document, and eventually what the customer really wants, there's a big difference. And I think that function analysis really helps in not being in that situation. So what we're going to talk about today is, first of all, what is function analysis? And then very short and sweet. And then I'm going to show you a whole bunch of examples and explain more about the process of function analysis with the different examples. So the examples will be in product development, construction projects, software development, organizational issues, portfolio management, industrial and business processes. And with that, we'll understand that function analysis can be used in different contexts and for different purposes also. Now, so that we talked about, sorry. Why am I going? It's starting over. Okay, there it is. So what is function analysis? I took the definition from one of the latest standard that was published in 2020, so not too long ago. It's the EN 12973. It's a European standard that says that function analysis is used to identify the functions of a product, a system, or an organization, and to help quantify the performance to be reached in each of these functions, and also to act as a means of communication between two groups, the group that is defining what the needs are and the group that will be designing and developing the product to fulfill those needs. So the communication is better between the two if you use tools like function analysis. So function analysis is the first thing you do when you want to do value engineering, where value is equal to the level of satisfaction of the needs over the cost to pay to satisfy those needs. So if you can define the needs better, you're going to design something that will focus better on these needs, so your clients will be happier and you will be more competitive because your product will be more focused on the client's needs. So let's right away look at a few examples. So as I said, it's not a course on function analysis, it's really how we use it in different contexts. So here, this is the context of product development, and it's a door system for a railway car. So what we say, the client receives a specification from a city that says we want to buy new cars for our trains or metro. And the specification says a whole bunch of things, but it's not always very clear, or it's so detailed that it's complicated to work with. So we identified the needs of the door system. And this is a very short summary of the function diagram of a door system, which was much bigger in real life. But the goal of a door system is to allow safe and reliable ingress and egress of passengers from the train car. And the things to do, different things to do, is you have to be able to enter and exit the car. And how you do that is by opening and closing the doors. So that's the basic function of a door system, to allow to enter and exit the car by opening and closing. Okay, so very basic. And you could design a system that would do that very simple and very cheap. The whole rest of the function diagram is other functions that you do to make it safer. Since all kinds of people and hundreds of people are going to be using these doors, you have to make sure that it's safe. So how do you ensure safety? Is by detecting obstructions, maintaining the door closed while the car is moving, or be able to open the doors manually if they're stuck. You want to announce the door movement so that people can mind the doors and not get cut off by the door. You want to indicate the status of the door. If a door is out of order, you want it to be indicated, and you want to ground the door electrically, for example. So all these things have cost associated to them and performance associated to them, and they're not to open and close the door. They're just there to ensure the safety. And a lot of the times the clients that request a door system don't go too much in details in these other functions. So again, another one is ensure comfort, control the noise. So you don't want too much noise from outside to go inside the car, minimize vibration, insulate from cold, ensure water tightness, and see outside. I will highlight this one because we'll talk about it in a minute again. So the client asked for a big window in the door so that everybody could see outside very easily. And then there are reliability issues, operation issues, and also be pretty. How can you be pretty? Is by following the shape of the car and matching the finish of the car. So why do you do these two things? To be pretty. Why do you do all that? So you can allow safe and reliable ingress and egress. So once the function diagram is done, we can use it for many purposes. And one of the purposes is to make sure we have all the performance specification well described. So for example, the function open, close door, there will be a performance criterion identified, which would be the time, how long does it take to open or to close the door. And the level would be, I just put different information here. The level would be 2 seconds, and it would be plus or minus 0.1 second. Another function would be detect obstruction, and the performance criterion here would be the minimum size of the obstruction we want to identify, and it would be a 2-inch diameter. With an F0, meaning that you have absolutely, you have to respect this, this level absolutely no matter what the cost is. So it's very important that a door system opens if there's a 2-inch diameter in something in the door that stops it from closing. So the function analysis and the performance criteria associated to that is a very interesting tool for a supplier to make sure he has all the information before he starts designing. And what will happen often with these guys is that some of the levels were not given in the specification of the train cars. And also sometimes they were discussed at 2 different places with different levels. So with this, you can identify discrepancies and ask intelligent questions to the client. Another thing that we did with these guys is do a functional cost distribution. So each of these branches, you're able to associate the solutions that you plan to use to design the door system. And for example, here, the basic function, enter, exit car, was 12% of the total cost of the door system. 28% was there to ensure safety. And then the client said, well, sure, it has to be safe. There's all kinds of people that come and take the train. So we have to make sure it's really safe. But when they saw that ensure reliability, 25%, fine, but ensure comfort, 20%, it's a door, it's not a seat. You know, I would understand if it's a seat that you have to be comfortable, but the door, they didn't understand why it was such a big number. And they realized that by asking for a big window, the window and plus the function where you want to insulate from the cold and the heat. So the window was triple glazed. It was very big. They had to reinforce the door to make sure that the window would not pop out. And so they asked the client, are you sure you want to pay 20% of the cost of the door to ensure the comfort, like heat, cold, they want to see outside. So they finally ended up reducing the size of the window so that it could be placed without having to reinforce the door, and it would save about 10% of the cost of the door. So that was an interesting point of view to be able to see how much each of these first level function in your diagram, how much they cost. So that's a very good use of the function analysis and the function cost distribution. This analysis that we do between suppliers and clients like that is a great help to have a better dialogue, because you now ask very focused questions, and the client came back and said, your questions are very to the point, very focused, and we know exactly where we can find the answer and give it to you so the supplier can work. So that's one example of in the product development. Another example here is a construction project of a farmer's market. So a farmer's market, as this city wanted to build a new farmer's market because the old one was way too small and too old, and there was no parking and so on. So they wanted to move it to another place. But a farmer's market is not just a roof and columns and a concrete slab. There's a lot more to it. And they did their research and they looked at markets around the world. What was the best practices? What were the best practices in terms of farmers market? And they identify a whole bunch of functions that they wanted to see in their farmers market. So what is the goal of a farmers market? Is to hold agri-food activities. Now it's not just sell food and that's it. You have all kinds of activities related to food and agriculture. So obviously the basic function was to hold trade. So how do you hold trade? Is by selling your fresh produce. And the farmers come in, you can buy fresh produce from them, but you can also buy transformed products. Let's say they make ketchup or apple pie. But also you can deliver your baskets, your, you know, when you're registered with a family farmer and they bring you a basket of vegetables and fruit every week, you could deliver those through the farmer's market. And again, here, a whole bunch of other functions that are not part of the trade, the selling function, you know, the sales, but all kinds of other things that they wanted to add. One of them was educate population. How? By showing off local products. You know, what is growing around you? Demonstrate urban agriculture. How can you grow stuff on your property? Hold workshops for education about food, about different produce that are grown. Present trends and new products, and then also entertain families. So you're not just educating adults, you can educate also kids and whole families. You also need to attract visitors, so groups can come. There could be groups of students or groups of the old age or groups of tourists or whatever. So you have to design something in your farmers market so a bus load of people can come and so on. You need to accommodate your clients. How? By serving food, parking their cars, manage shopping carts, all the things. You need to be able to operate that market. So the administration of it, and then ensure health and safety by cleaning, minimize car pedestrian contacts. And one of the last things they really wanted to do is encourage social impact. You know, we talk more and more about social involvement. And one of the things they wanted to do is contain unsold products, keep them there in the refrigerator so that community groups can come and get these food and then prepare food for the homeless people or something like that. So with all these functions, and again, the performance associated for that, for example, Greek groups, how many groups can we receive at once, how big the groups, and so on. The professionals went out and they designed a market that did all that within the budget also. And it has been built, and it's super popular now because it does so much more than just sell fresh produce or transform products. So they are very happy. What happened here is that they made sure, doing this function analysis, made sure that the design team thought of everything from the start. All these functions were identified, they were all fit in. And what they said is if we go over our budget, maybe there's a few things that will fall, but they were able to put everything in there. So one of the goals of the function analysis is make sure you have everything when you start designing. Another example is organizational development. And this is an example with a provincial highway management division where they had been stopped from hiring because of budget constraints. So a lot of people left, and they had a lot of places where they were missing people, and they wanted to hire, but they didn't know where to start or who was priority, let's say. So we did the function analysis of that division, which their goal was to plan, build, and maintain a provincial transportation network. So in order to allow the population and goods to travel for economical and personal reason in a safe, efficient manner. And this is, you see here the arrow, this is the mission statement of the division. So the function tree, when you're talking organizational development, you have at this high level here the mission statement. The next level represents the strategies. So these are the 5 strategies you have to put in place to be able to accomplish your mission. And then you have the tactic level. These are the different tactics you're going to use to put your strategies into place. And then eventually, if you go further down your function diagram, you will have a deployment, how you're going to deploy these tactics to accomplish your strategies. And eventually, at the end, you reach the activities level. So a function diagram really helps you organize. What happened here is that they knew that they had deficiencies in their personnel, and they wanted to determine hiring priorities. So who are we going to hire first and second and third and so on? So what we did is identify 4 criteria. Let me move this over. Alternate delivery. So how easy it is to have somebody else do the job and not inside the division. How we can deliver our mission, the mission statement. What is the impact on the delivery of the mission? What is the gap in resources? So how off are we? Let's say we need 10 persons to do something, we only have 2. That's a big gap. But if we need 10 and we have 9, that's a very small gap. And then is this a function that we want to keep within the organization, or how strategic is it to keep within the organization? And each criteria had a level, a weight. And then we looked at all the functions. We took a whole bunch of functions and asked us with the team. So for example, monitor the performance of the workers. How easy is it to have somebody else do it? That was quite easy. 3, there's lots of resources that can do that. Not very big impact on the travel. Not a very big gap, but it is something that we would like to keep within the organization. So if you multiply each dose by their weight and then multiply them together, you get a priority index of 423. Now, another function, for example, maintain the network. How easy it is to have an alternate delivery, somebody else do it? Well, it's quite easy because arrangements are already in place. So we gave it a 1. It's easy to have people remove the snow, like plow the snow from the roads or patch the holes. And we have already subcontractors that can do that. But if we don't do this function, what's the impact on the delivery of the mission? Well, if we don't plow the roads or fill in the holes, we won't be able to travel. At one point, it's going to be just a catastrophe. No way to use the road. What is the gap in these resources? It's quite big. We're missing some of the resources to do that. And is it a knowledge we want to keep within the organization? Yes, it's a very specific knowledge and expertise, and we want to keep that knowledge within the organization. You multiply all that, and you see that you have here an index of 1,500. So then you can go back to the people in charge of maintaining the network and say, you guys have priority over these guys. So if we're going to hire, we're going to start there instead of there. And this one, this other function was 1,200, so a little less important than that one, a little less priority, let's say. So that's an example of what we can do also with function analysis. So set priorities, and they were able to do that. Another example in the HR, I know it's too small, you can't read, so we're going to focus, but the same thing here, this level here is the strategies level. So there were 8 strategies to put in place. The role, the function analysis we did here is that they had the HR people in the corporate office, and they would be like consultants for all the different plants, so the business units. And what they wanted to do is send one HR person per business unit and out there instead of staying at the corporate. So instead of having a specialist in every field, each person would go in a business unit and become a generalist for the business unit. So they said, well, we don't know exactly what needs to be done. So these are the different strategies, what a HR generalist will have to do, 8 things, different tactics to apply these strategies, deployment, and all the way to the activities. So let's focus a little bit so we can see something. So for example, one of the things they need to do is maintain a good work atmosphere, a good labor climate, let's say. So how do you do that? By taking the pulse of that atmosphere. How do you do that? By surveying employees, survey management. How do you do that? You have a whole bunch of activities here. You prepare the survey, you send the survey, you ask the survey to come back, you did blah, blah, blah. And then you need to share the results of the survey. How? By preparing summaries. You need to react to the results. How? By preparing an intervention plan. You need to manage the cafeteria. You know, when there's good food, people are in better mood. You need to monitor labor relations. So we did that with a whole bunch of branches. Another one here, support operations, a big branch. So what happened after that is that the few HR resources that were involved, they were the design team. They were able to identify each one of them where they had weaknesses and strength, and an action plan on how to improve their weaknesses and how to use their strength to help the other HR people that would be around in the different business units. So it was really a reorganization of the work so that they would be within the business unit instead of staying corporate. And they did the creativity, what can we do? And they made a training plan for the people that were there. And they created like a mini network for these 7 persons to be able to talk to each other, to help each other out. So it helped them get organized, get structured, and know what to do. And with all that, they were able also to hire a few that were missing, so that that was kind of used to do a job description. Another example is portfolio management. In this example, what we saw, we worked with is a service provider, so it's in the service industry, and they had an IT portfolio, a lot of IT projects. The president asked, well, what would you like to do with the IT next year? And people came up with 30 projects. We want to do all these 30 projects. And they were asked to identify how much each project would cost. Of course, if you sum up the 30 projects, it was way too much, too expensive, much more than what the president wanted to spend on that year. So he said, we need a roadmap. How are we going to do these projects over maybe the 3 or 4 next years? So where shall we start? Which project should we do first? So we sat down with the management team and say, okay, what's the link between all these IT projects? Well, they were all there to improve the business services. Oh, how do we improve our business? Is by improving the development of new markets, improving service delivery, improving billing of clients, improving monitoring of performance, and improving business tools. And again, how do we do that? You got these things. How do we do that? You got these things, and so on. So with that, we then did a parallel with the 30 different projects. So we listed the 30 projects and said, okay, this project contributes to what function? So just like a component in a product, an IT project here was a component of this portfolio. So we were able to identify for each project how they contributed to one of these functions. And we realized by doing that a lot of projects, there was an overlap. So one person said, I want to do this project, another person, I want to do this, and there was an overlap. So by cleaning up the overlaps, right away, they were able to identify a 10% cost reduction of the different IT projects. So they were happy to identify that. And we used also that to, first of all, define the importance of each group, each function, based on how it influenced the business itself, the survival of the business, let's say. We compared the different functions to set the importance level of each. We looked at the different projects and compared them based on the functions that were identified here, and we're able to prioritize them based on the value that they created for the business, okay? And that helped us prepare a map. So what does it look like? Well, one of the things we did is match the cost versus the importance of the function. So for example, here, improve the development of new markets on the left. The blue line was how important is it for management that we improve the development of new markets? And the orange line was how much money in the project portfolio do we have? How much money is allocated to that project? And there was a big mismatch here. It's not very important, lots of money. Same with the one in the middle, deliver contractual obligation. It was quite important, but this is where most of the money went. And then you have others, like the second one, communicate with clients. It was quite important. There's a little bit of importance, the blue line, very little money associated with that, that function. So again, right from here, they said, well, maybe we're not putting the money at the right place. Maybe we should see if we can move some money from one project to another to have it at where it's important for us. And eventually, by comparing the different projects that were left after these two phases, like each dot on this value graph is a project. So you see that from 30, they went down to about 20 projects. And the ones that are on the left in the kind of black cloud are the ones that have a lot of merit to improve the value of the company. They create value for the company, and they cost very little money. So we told them, maybe you want to start with a big bang for your buck here. So start with those because they will bring a lot of improvement to the company, and they cost very little money. So they were able to do that in the first year. And they were able to do the ones in the second cloud, the blue cloud, do that at the end of the first year and started the second year. And eventually the one that's lost all alone there on the right, where they said, well, it costs a lot of money. It has some merit, but it's so much more expensive. They decided to push it over and get all of those done before, and then those few here, and then this one last. So the roadmap was done like that. How much value each project brings to the company. even though all these projects had a return on investment that was marvelous, then the company said, yeah, but let's compare them together with the goals of the company. Another example, I told you there was a lot of examples. Another example here, this is a manufacturing process. It's a leaching process. It's chemical. Okay, so you have a soil that has material in it, and then you leach it. It's like you wash it. You have water go through, and there's the product that you want leaches out, and the rest you can throw out, let's say. So the goal of the process was to leach material continuously. So how do you do that? Is by feeding the reaction. How do you do that? By loading the material and ensuring contact time. And again, we use this to make sure that we had all the functions and define the performance levels. So load the materials, it's fine that we say that, of course, but we have to ask questions like, how much material can we load? Is it a ton per minute, a ton per day, a ton per week? Is it, what is expected in terms of performance? Same thing with contact time. Once we've loaded the material, do we leave it for an hour or for a minute or for 2 days, okay, to be able to have a reaction? And then we need to extract the leach product. So how to, by carrying it out, how much do we expect to carry out? Is it a ton per minute, a ton per day, a ton per week? Because we need to design either conveyor or something to be able to satisfy this demand. And then there are other things we do for ensuring efficiency, for example, like preheat material. So we load the material here to have that chemical reaction, but we preheat it to make sure it's more efficient, to increase the efficiency. If it's cold, it'll work, but instead of taking contact time of 1 hour, it will take 2 hours. So by preheating it, it goes faster. And again, you need to define the performance. And you have ensure quality of product, ensure safety, and respect environment. And what we did here is we used that to distribute the work with the engineering team. So we said, for example, well, Peter, you will take charge of these are the two basic functions, feed, reaction, and extract the leach product. You take charge of these two. And then we say, Paul, okay, Paul, you take charge of these two functions. What we need to do to design to be able to make it more efficient and have a better quality of product. And finally, Mary, maybe you should take care of these two functions, ensure safety and respect environment. So now everybody from the design team, the engineering team knew who's in charge of what. And obviously they work together. They're not individually working, but this helped them define who's in charge of what and eliminate the overlaps, or also eliminate, for example, carry product and nobody takes care of that function because, oh, I thought you were doing it. No, you're doing it. And eventually nobody works on it. So to make sure everything's covered. So we use that again to define the performance that was expected at each of these functions. Make sure we cover all aspects, that we don't have something fall between two cracks, and distribute the work to make sure that everybody has their responsibilities and they know what to do. Software development is another example. This is a water management information system for a city, where the information system was used to manage potable, waste, and stormwater. So how do we do that? Well, first of all, the basic function is serve the customers. That means bring them the potable water and removing the wastewater and taking care of the stormwater. But this system was also used to manage assets, to make sure that the teams were efficient, to share information with different other information systems, ensure safety, collect revenues, pay dues, and respond to emergency. With the function analysis that we did here, we were able to, what happened is we had a team of IT experts around the table and asked them at obviously each of these branches out to a bit more, a lot more functions. And we asked the IT experts, okay, so what tools are out there? What kind of software or hardware is out there that we could use to be a city of the 21st century in each of these functions? So people came up with all kinds of ideas how to, what new tools they could use, new software, new hardware, tablets, iPads for every trucker, lots of software and all that to make it more efficient, more 21st century, let's say. So we used it to find innovative ways of doing the work, define the value of each of these IT scenarios, because we were able to combine things together to make sense, and then select the scenario with the best value. Another example, airport security. The airport had to comply with new Transport Canada regulations, so they had to change things so how trucks could have access to the back of the airport, not where the passengers are, but where the airplanes are. So we need to control access to the critical area by screening vehicles, people, and equipment. We need to support airport operations, accommodate staff, allow future growth, and ensure safety. What was happening here is they had 4 options, and then everybody was saying, oh, I like this option because of this, and then somebody else was saying, I like that option because of that, and another one said, oh, I like this one because of this reason, and the wheels were spinning, but they were going nowhere, and they didn't know exactly how to make their decision, how to decide. So we told them we can use function analysis, define all the functions that this new design of the access to the back can do. Once we have all these functions, we can compare the 4 scenarios, and we have the performance associated to that. We can compare the different scenarios, give them a score, and eventually they came up with a they were able to select the best option among the 4 based on these scenarios. So function analysis really helped to do that. So, yeah, how is it? Okay. So these are all examples where function analysis helped a lot achieve the goal of the workshop that we were asked to do. And I hope that it helps you open up to, let's say, if you're in product development, well, to see that there's HR issues that can be solved with that. If you're in IT, well, to see that you can use that in construction also. And so I wanted to show you a good sample of different contexts where we can use function analysis and end up using it for different purposes and with a lot of success.